Hi guys, welcome to the channel. My name's Reese and today I want to show you how we can create a 3D landing page design similar to what you'll find on the Awwwards website. We'll be using Gsap, React Free Fiber and a few other tools along the way. Here's a little preview of what we'll be creating. Okay guys, so hopefully you enjoyed that little preview. There's just a couple of things that I want to mention before we start our project together. The first one is Node. I just need to make sure that you've got Node installed on your computer. You can go to this website here, which I'll link in the description, and you can go ahead and follow the instructions depending on what computer you're using. The second one is our code editor. We'll be using Visual Studio Code as there's a couple of handy extensions which will help us later on down the line. We're going to now create our project, so let's create a new folder on our desktop. We're going to hit enter and type projects. We're then going to drag that into our Visual Studio Code, and I'm just going to delete this one and drag that down here just so we can see it better while building our React application. Now the first step that we want to do is create React app. So if you do this with me, create new React app, scroll down, and we can copy. We're gonna, in our projects folder, we're gonna open a new integrated terminal. Within here, we can paste that in, and we can delete my app, and we can call this our project. Hit enter. Depending on your connection, this may take a little bit of time, so I'm gonna fast forward through now. You'll notice that we can cd our project, just so we're in our projects folder. You'll notice this is our project that we created. There's the node modules in there, which are all of our dependencies. You've got the public folder, which has the index.html, and you'll notice we've got the div with an ID of root. That's where our React will append to. If we go to source over here, you'll see that if we go to the index.js file, it gets element by ID, which is our root, and then it renders it to that div. So what we want to do now is just clean up our project just to trim it down a little bit. There's a few things that we don't need, so we can go ahead and delete report vitals, tests, move to trash, logo, move to trash, test again, app.css, move to trash, and should just be left with app.js, index.css and index.js. So you'll see that we've already changed our directory into our project. We can just put npm run start up our development server on our local host. Oh, my screen's going a little bit weird. We have a few errors just because we've deleted a few of the files. So what we want to do is go into our index.js. We deleted the file for that. We deleted that. Save that out. We have to go into our app.js. We deleted the logo, which is being referenced there. Save that out. And we also deleted our app.css file. Save that out. Save and reload. But delete everything. And here we can start test, and it's working. Cool. I'm just going to quickly run through how we can create our own functional components. Before we do that, if you just go to the extensions tab for me and download this extension here, that'll just make things a little bit easier. Once that's done, we'll go back over here. We're going to create a new folder. We're going to call this components, and in that folder we're going to create a new file. We'll call this our component.js. And now that we've got that extension installed, we should be able to type React arrow, and then it'll come up with these options here. We want the function with export, and it will create a new functional component with our export here, which means that we can use it in different places of our app. So if I save that out, and then we're going to head over to our app, and we're going to import our component. Should pre-fill. You'll see let's go into the components folder and get in our JavaScript, and then we can then use that in our app, and we can self-close that just like there, and it'll render up here. I'll go in and change that now to anything, it'll update, and we can also close it off just like this. Our component save, and it's exactly the same. What we can do also, if we go back to our component file, we can create a variable, so const my variable equals hello. We can then use that within our return statement. Type my variable, hit enter, and it returns that for us there too. So hopefully that gives you a basic understanding of how we can create our own components in React. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and delete that for the time being, move to trash, and just delete it from our application. So we're back to basics, save, and we've got a white screen. Cool. What we want to do is go over to a package.json. You can see the different dependencies here. What we're going to do is just close this off for now. So hit Control-C if you're using a Mac, and that will just break that. It won't be able to connect anymore. The reason we're doing that is because we're going to go ahead and start installing our dependencies. So the first one, I'm going to go over here, we're going to install Gsap. So we can copy npm Gsap, paste it in, hit enter. That should go through. Gsap's what we're going to be using to animate the robot on scroll. Next one is React Free Fiber. So same again, copy, paste, hit enter. React Free Fiber, I'd recommend checking out all of the docs before you proceed with this tutorial, just so you get a bit of an understanding of how to set up your first scene, show you how to create a canvas, and then how to add the meshes to the canvas and add lights down below so you can actually see your meshes. Third package we're going to install is Drei, which is kind of like a component-based library on top of React Free Fiber. It just simplifies things, and you can get really good looking websites just from playing with and tweaking these. So npm install React Free Drei. We'll wait for that to go through, shouldn't take too long. And the final one is baffle.js. So you can do npm I baffle once this has gone through, and that's what we're going to be using just to create the glitch effect on the text on load. So npm I baffle, hit enter, and you'll notice as we're doing these package.json updates, which means we can then use that in our project, which is pretty cool. With our dependencies now installed, we can head over back to our app, and I'll quickly run through how we can set up our scene in React Free Fiber. So we scroll up here, we need to import the canvas. So if we go to the top of this file, in fact we'll do this in our index.js, because then we can wrap our whole app in the canvas. So we just create the canvas there, wrap our app in it, click save, scroll down, we can add some mesh, and now that our app is inside the canvas, we can actually add that into here, save it out, as well as add in some light in there too. Now we can't actually add two things at the same level, so let's create a React fragment just to wrap them in. You won't receive any errors. To actually see this in the browser, remember we closed that off, just type npm start. That will run our React scripts and give it a refresh. It might take a little bit of time, and you'll see we've got our cube here. It looks a little small, so the reason behind that is the canvas is only that tall at the moment. So what I'm going to do is just paste some CSS styles in there just to increase the size of that to fill our viewport. So if I copy from my other screen, just going to paste over the top, and it's basically going to fix it. Top and bottom of the screen, width and height 100%, click save. There we go. That's all working as we expected. Drei, as I said before, is a bit of a template library, so we can actually use their nice simple way of adding meshes to the scene. So we can delete our mesh there, we can actually copy and paste that in. We can delete this as well. and then we can just import it at the top. So import rounded box from React Drei, and then click save. Got our rounded box. We can remove the wireframe, change the color. That's all working nicely. If you wanted to change the background of the canvas or the scene, what you can do is create a new color. We can attach it to the background and provide some args. Args equals an object which has an array, and we can give it a background of red. Self-close that off, and that'll update too. We can change that to be anything. Let's go with a blackish colour. There we go, cool. I'm going to make that a little bit brighter. There we go. We're now going to animate the rounded box. So to do that, we need to assign it to a variable which we can then run on an animation loop. So to do that, let's start with import use ref from React. That means that we can now give this rounded box a reference. We'll put test in there, and above our return statement, we're going to construct this test equals use ref. Cool. Save it out. It shouldn't break. We're next going to import use frame from React free fiber, which is a React free fiber hook. We can then call that in here. Use frame. We're going to pass through the state and the delta, which is the time. And what we can do here now is console.log the test. So if I clear this out, every animation frame is now outputting this. If I just comment out, stop it running a second, we can see our object, current object, and we can see all of the different variables and attributes that we can modify. So we're going to do that now. We're going to do test.current.rotation.y, which can all be seen in here. Rotation y, and we're going to do plus equals delta. Save that out, and we've now got a cube that spins around. You can't see it that well because it's not got any shadows at the minute, but that's all working. Now how to add objects to the scene, give them a reference, and animate them using the use frame hook. We're just going to delete all of this for now. We're going to go back to square one. We'll leave the colour for the background in there for now, and we're going to go and move on to ScrollControls. So ScrollControls is a decent component from Drei. If I scroll all the way to the top, you can see there's a load of different controls here. We want ScrollControls. There's a few examples which you can click through and explore. If you scroll down a little bit, we're just going to copy and paste from there. We're going to nudge that along a bit. Remove all of the comments. In fact, we'll leave that in. We don't have a food component because we didn't copy that across. And let's just have a look. We can save that out. We don't have some model here either. Let's save it out. ScrollControls is not defined. So remember, at the top of our file, we just need to make sure we're importing that from Drei. Save that out. It's all working as per. Now, you'll notice now when we scroll, because we've set pages to be 3, it's going to allow us to scroll 3 times the viewport height. If we wanted more scroll, we can set that to be 6. Now set it to be 6 times the viewport height. So depending on what your needs are, you can play around with that. It's all explained in the documentation. Here are the different properties that you can set. In fact, you can even set horizontal scroll. So if we do that now, we can set horizontal, and you'll see you can go left to right as well, which is pretty cool. Okay, so just to explain a little more what's happening here, we've got our ScrollControls. This provides us with these scroll containers. Anything that we want in HTML, we just need to add this little HTML tag in here, and then we can start coding out what we want to see on the page. Anything that we want to add into the canvas, like React Free Fiber or Drei elements, we add in here. So just as an example, we're going to go over and add our rounded box again, and paste that in, shift them along a little bit, delete mesh props, save, and you can see it's been added to the scene and it moves on the scroll, which is cool. If we move horizontal, it's now going to scroll up and down. If you don't want it to actually move with the scroll, we can just take that out of the scroll container, but still within the scroll controls. We can paste that in, and it will just scroll. It will just be in the center, just like that. So within our HTML, these headings, we just need to make sure position, absolute them, and you'll be able to see how we can start building our content layout up here. So we've got our first HTML in here, optional. Second one should start at 100 viewport, which is there, and then the third page, 200 viewport height, there, just like that. Cool. We can add our objects to the page, and also where we can add our HTML to the page. I'm just going to delete these here. I'm just going to paste in some HTML that I already have, and I'll explain it a little bit. So we've got our heading 1, our first row, second row, heading 2, which is in the center, and our final button. If I save that out, give it a refresh. In fact, you'll notice it looks a little bit weird. That is just because scroll HTML doesn't have a style set for the width. So we make that width 100%. You'll see that looks a lot better. There you go. So all of this code I'll provide in the GitHub project in the description below. I've also added some CSS just for the row and some other stuff. But next we'll be adding our robot to the scene. Okay, so now we're ready to add our model into the scene. I've got one ready over here, which I'll show you, GLB file. If you don't have one, you can head over to sketchfab. There's loads of models on here which you can download. Type robot in, downloadable, and just have a look for one that you want to use and you can download it. Obviously there are licenses and stuff that you need to be aware of, so if you're going to put it public, just make sure you credit them depending on their licenses. So I'm going to close that off, and what we're going to do is create in our public folder a new folder called models, and we'll call this robot. I'm going to drag our file into that new robot folder, into there. What we need to do now is convert our model into a reusable JSX component. So we head over back to Drei controls on the GitHub and just click on, I don't know how you pronounce it, it's Boymander's GitHub profile. It's got a cool tool here, GLTF JSX. Click on that, scroll down. You can have a look through all of this description because there's loads of different things you can do. And we're just going to copy, just open up a new tab here, and we're going to modify this because our file was actually called something else. So copy whatever your file is called, paste it in here, just make sure the extension is correct as a GLB, copy that, close that off, save, and we're going to open a new terminal, new integrated terminal in our robot folder, and we're going to paste that in. What that's going to do is convert it into a component for us, so we'll just wait for that to go through. Okay, so that's gone through now. You'll notice we've got two terminals open, so we can close this one off. So once that's done, we're now going to drag our Phantoms JSX component into our components. We're just going to rename that, we'll call it robot. And we're also going to change the name of the function. And we just need to update the paths. So I'm just going to quickly copy and paste from my other screen just to save a little bit of time. Here and here. Cool. And that's just going to grab it from our public folder. From there, what we can do is import our robot. self-close it off. It should import at the top. If it doesn't, you'll need to just import it. Click save, and you'll see that it's now added to the scene, which is pretty cool. So it's a bit dark at the moment. What we're going to do is add a couple of lights in here. I've just pasted these from over screen. We've got an ambient light and a spotlight. We're going to save it out, and we can begin to see it's looking a little bit better. The scene's still a little bit dark, so what we'll do, we'll head over to Drei. We go back, and we're going to add an environment to us. The scene. Let's just find environment. There it is. Let's copy that. Let's paste that in as well. So we've actually got a load of different things here. If you want to use your own, you can use your own files and set a path to them. If you want blur, you can do that, but we're not going to. Background. Let's just keep that on for a second. Preset. We can actually set the preset to be, for example, warehouse, which you can actually see here the different presets we've got. So the one I use is warehouse. Scene and encoding we can get rid of. Let's save it out. It's not imported yet, so let's just go up here and import it. Save it out again, and you'll notice a lot brighter now. The model's got a few artifacts which just need to delete for a second. So I believe that's one of them, and that's one of them. There we go, it's looking a bit better now. So that's looking cool, it's a lot brighter. So play around with the materials just to make it a bit more reflective, so we can do that just by creating some open and close mesh tags. Got a mesh physical material there, which I'll save. You can see it's nice and shiny. Feel free to go through, read the React 3 fiber documents and just set up your own materials. I'm just going to go paste in another material for the body. So we're going to turn that into closing mesh tag. And I'm just going to paste another physical material in there. There we go. So you'll notice now that our robot's starting to reflect the scene. It looks a bit more realistic, a lot better. It's actually scrolling with our scroll, which we don't want. We want to keep it in place. So if you remember, we just need to remove our robot outside of the actual scroll elements, but still within our scroll controls box. There we go. It's looking good. We don't want the background to display, so we'll remove that, save it out, and you'll notice our robot's still reflecting the environment. We're gonna just scale it down a little bit. So scale equals 0.8. Looks a bit better. We're gonna head over to our robot.jsx. And if you remember from earlier on in the tutorial, in order to animate our objects, we need to use the useRef hook from React. That's already been imported, so if we go to our return function, let's tap down a little bit. First group element, we're gonna add our reference equals, we're gonna call it robot, and then we're just gonna go to the top here and construct robot equals useRef. Next you want to do is import Gsap from Gsap. We'll be using that to animate our robot, and if we head over to the Drei, you'll notice that ScrollControls provides a nice little hook. Use scroll, so we just need to import that from Drei. Use scroll, save, and then what we can do is construct scroll equals use scroll. Sorry. We also just want to construct a timeline, and we'll just copy and paste that there too. And that's our Gsap timeline. From there, what we want to do is use frame. If you remember from the previous lesson, and we're going to pass through the state and the delta, and then we're going to basically update the timeline to seek where we've scrolled within the scroll controls. So if we do timeline.current seek, I'm going to pass through the scroll, the offset, and then we multiply that by the timeline.current duration. Cool. Don't worry if this doesn't make sense to you, it should become clear in a second. And from there, what we need to do is use layout effect, another React function, and we just need to pass that an arrow function. We're going to do timeline current equals Gsap dot timeline, and we're going to set a few defaults in here. So let's pass it through an object, defaults, which is also another object, duration, 2, ease. I'm going to set it to be power 1 dot in out. So this is just some defaults just to make things easier for us. We're going to save that. We'll notice we haven't declared use frame or use layout effect yet. So that's a React free fiber function. Import use frame from React free fiber, and then use layout effect as a React hook. So we can save that out, and that's gone through okay. Cool. So from there, within this use layout effect, which only actually happens once the page is fully loaded, we can start affecting our robot. Just before I do that, there's one thing I forgot, and that's just to pass through an empty array there. Cool. Cool. So what I'm going to do is just paste in what I've got on my other screen, and you'll see that all we're doing is setting our robot current rotation Y, and this number here defines kind of where in the timeline it happens. So the numbers are all relative. You've got your starter number and you've got your ending number. The ending number can be anything you want, but it'll represent the end of the timeline in your scroll. So if we go for 20, if we wanted to affect something halfway down the timeline, you'd set something to be 10. So you can play around with these and just kind of set different values. If I wanted to set that to be -4, you'll notice roughly 13 is just over halfway of 20. So if I set this just over halfway down, it's going to have a lot more. There you go. See that? It's going to rotate a bit more than what it was before. So the numbers basically between the last one and the first one, it's all kind of percentage based. If I'll give that a refresh, there we go. So now we've got our model animating depending on scroll. We're just going to close that off for a second, and we're just going to polish up our scene just to make it look a little bit better. I won't go too much into detail, but we're going to add in some sparkles. Just make sure you import that again from Drei. You can read that in the documentation. We go sparkles. Here are all the different values that you can set depending on how you want it to look. So that looks cool now. Got some sparkles in there. We're also going to add a backdrop in there, which is another React Drei component. Backdrop to scene. Again, I won't go too much into this. You can probably just copy these settings here. Receive shadow, floor, segment, scale, position. Save that out. Backdrop again. Let's import that. Save it out. And we've got this nice coloured background now. At the moment, our model isn't actually casting any shadow to the background, so we just need to go back to our index.js, and we just want shadows. We just need to enable that in our canvas, refresh. It's still not casting any shadows. What you want to do is go back to your robot, and within the mesh, we just want to type cast shadow, and same with this one here. Save, give it a refresh, and there we go. You can kind of see that happening there. So it's pretty cool. We also just want to add a floating element to the background. So if I close that off, go back into my app, and we're just going to add below our backdrop a float, and I've added the ring in there as well, all of which again are in Drei's documentation's float. You can see what you can set there. We're just going to add that, put that in at the top, as well as our ring. Save, give it a refresh, and now we've got a cool little animated ring in the background. Perfect. What we want to do is animate this title here. So we're going to be using baffle.js. So we're going to import baffle from baffle, and then we're going to use a React function, so it only happens once on load, which is use effect, which pass through a arrow function, and from there what we want to do is construct our target equals baffle, and we call this title. So it's going to look for anything with a class name of title. I've already given my header one here the class. So we scroll back up. What we want to do is set a few parameters. Target.set, pass through an object, characters, and this is kind of the content which you want it to kind of glitch between. So if you go to this website here, Unicode table, you can grab a few glitchy elements. I've already got some, so I'm just going to copy and paste it in here. We're also just going to set the speed, set that to be 100. From there, what you want to do is target start and target reveal, and we're going to pass through 1000. And use effect is not defined. That's because we haven't imported it yet from React. Import use effect from React. Save out. Now if we give this a reload, it should animate our text nicely, which is pretty cool. And not much effort at all. There we go. Okay guys, so I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If there's any parts that you struggled with at all, I highly recommend taking Bruno Simon's Three.js journey course. I'll pop a link in the description below. This should fill any gaps in your knowledge. And finally, I'll just say, if you want to see any more tutorials like this, I'd really appreciate it if you could drop me a like, just so I know whether to create more content just like this one. Bye for now.